fun thing about Mario Kart tracks is that they feel like actual worlds, so if you can leave the boundaries, perhaps you can explore those literal worlds, but not Earth. We've already explored Earth. Let's explore some fictional worlds. Here's all the tracks we're not going to be covering, just because I didn't think there was much interesting to talk about. First up is Yoshi Falls. Now, you can't really explore anywhere in Yoshi Falls, but if you go under the floor, the trees have the Nintendo logo on them for some reason. I don't know why they have the Nintendo logo, but they do. On a similar note, the reflection in the water here isn't actually a reflection, it's just the model again. And this extends to stuff you probably won't ever see, like this ramp. In Delfino Square, most of the walls and stuff out of bounds didn't have any collision, but there's this one area by the sign where you can go. In fact, you can go in the fountain itself. Similarly, in Daisy Circuit, most of the alternate areas are out of bounds, but if you get onto this ledge, you can go past the plant pots. Oh god. If you can get up here by the plant pots, you can hang out with these Miis that you can only see from one side. And you actually go all the way around this balcony, this collision here, and you can hang out with these little chairs. You can't go all the way though. Additionally, the grass in here has collision, and not only can you go in the fountain, but you can go on the fountain. Any pavement is fair game in this area. And although the grass in this wall doesn't have collision, the ledge with the lighthouse actually does. So you can drive all the way around here even though you can't normally get up here. Just don't touch the grass. Well, I couldn't find much on Grumble Volcano. You're probably wondering what happens when the rocks fall. We will begin by riding the rock downward through the lava. It just kind of keeps going, like really far down. And then it disappears. The same thing happens in Block Plaza when these platforms fall. And we can see all the other ones falling at the same rate, which looks really trippy. In Desert Hills, usually the dark sand can't you out of bounds, but now you can go in it, drift around, and we can see what's actually around here. If we go up on the outside, then we die. But if we go up the inside, we can drive up this super steep thing, and there's a little crater here for some reason, and you can just sit in it. This has collision. Unfortunately, most of the walled off areas don't have any collision. In Dry Dry Ruins, we can get on this wall here, and we can fall down, which is normally out of bounds, in this small area specifically. And if you're wondering about the Yoshi Sphinx, yes, you can enter the Yoshi Sphinx. In Peach Gardens, most of the out of bounds doesn't have any collision, but for some reason, when you enter the dark hedges specifically, there is collision. Through this wall is where the alternate route is in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You can see it actually exists in Mario Kart Wii, although it doesn't have any collision. There's also collision underneath the hedges in the hedge maze. And if we go to the right of this bush, we can actually go out of bounds here and drive around a little bit. We can't go all the way around sadly, because that does run out. Here's the swap with us in jail in N64 Battle Castle. He doesn't seem to have any collision. Delfino Pier is really inconsistent about what has collision and what doesn't. For example, underneath these chimneys, hole. Underneath this chimney, not a hole. Also, this is what the bridge looks like from the wrong side. The shape of Twilight House is basically a square, and there's that little bit in the middle that we can't go to. But what's actually there? Well, if we drive towards it and look through this wall, there is another room in here. It's got a bright purple floor, really different from any of the others. In Moo Moo Meadows, while we can't drive on everything, there's a lot of the grassy area that we can drive on. The cows that are out of bounds aren't objects, they're just stationary models. There's barns out here that have collision fully inside them. Not so much in the way of cows, but collision. We can even drive up to these trees in the background and see that they're not even all on the floor. We can go in the windmill, but God forbid we go in here with the cows. Now you may not have noticed, but some of these cows are 2D, and they're the same texture on both sides. Which unfortunately means that this poor cow has no face. Much like Desert Hills, Mario Raceway has a little shade of off-road that's a bit different to signify out of bounds. But unlike in Desert Hills, pretty much all of it has collision. We can go around the side of this wall, and we can just drive around the entire track. As long as we stay near the checkered wall, we won't fall out of bounds. At least until we get to the stadium, then we will fall out of bounds. Now, due to the nature of this mod, we can't tell if things have wall collision because we just drive through them, but some objects that have wall collision do still stop us, like this sign. Now, the reason this sign having wall collision is so interesting is that you can see this sign had a moving part, and then it has this blue stationary part that's just part of the course model. Now, normally, this part's a wall. Here, we're driving through it because we have the walk through walls cheat code. So why does the object need to have collision? Why do they make collision for that object? As a result of this cheat code, we sometimes just fall through the floor. But that helps us see that there's just an underground section with full collision down here. The collision extends until the slope. If we keep exploring, we can see where the sand ends, and we can see a giant Koopa shell just in the water, which we can also go inside. Unlike in the other uncultured tracks, if we get up this waterfall and phase through this wall, we actually can drive in the little alternate road. It didn't last for long. Sadly, the collision does run out. but it's cool you can come here nonetheless. In Maple Treeway, there's a glitch that even works in the base game, where you can just fall down and you can explore the area down below. Fortunately, I keep falling through the floor when I fall from a height, so this might take a while. Never mind, I got it first try. The collision sure is wonky though, and it does eventually run out. But you get really nice views of the track from here. We can also go in these houses, and the floor, just in it, I guess. In Funky Stadium, if you fall off that ramp before landing in the actual stadium, there's a little out of bound area that catches you. And now we can explore it. We can go pretty far out and the collision gets wonky. The stadium part though, again, you just fall through. Most of these stadium ramps just have a death hole underneath them, but if we go to the half-pipe one in particular, we can hang out on the side for a bit. This is what happens if you fall in the sinkhole in Swamp Desert. You start sinking, and you continue sinking. We move the camera, we can see that we are moving a steady pace downwards. In Toad's Factory, you can fall behind this railing and fall through the floor. But if you don't fall through the floor, there's a whole area down here. We can go underneath the track, we can go to where this cargo is stored, and from the left we can actually see a hole in the model. And what's funny is now we know it exists, we can hang out on the side, perfectly in bounds, jump off, and there it is. For some reason, if you fall down in this pit, there's floor here, and by going through these tractors, we can explore out of bounds a little bit. If we go too close to that wall over there, we do fall through the floor, but if we go forward, we'll actually find an invisible floor that's vertical. The same can be found on the left side. If we drive through this tractor, go straight and start shrooming. Whee! In Peach Beach, if there's water, there's sand underneath it. We knew that obviously from this section, but let's say we want to go underneath Daisy Cruiser. There's sand, but not just visually. We can just keep going, and there's sand all the way out. We can literally drive up to where the sky ends, and there's still sand that we can drive on. In fact, you can drive through the sky, and there's still sand you can drive on. Where there isn't sand you can drive on is underneath the pink rock. Because God forbid. Sometimes there's more sand than there is water. You can see bubbles in the car, and Toad sounds like he's drowning, but the water has very clearly ended. For some reason, everything in Mario Circuit has collision. Like, if I want to go over to these houses, I can, and this whole area has collision. I can even go in the houses, and that has collision. And it's the same for any of these houses. All of these housing districts, you can just roam around. And while I can't go into Peach's castle or on the bridge, I can get pretty near without it counting me out. Now, if I want to go inside the stone wall, God forbid. But if I want to spiral my way down to where the chain chomper is, I can do that. If I want to go to these houses, I can do that. Now, you're probably wondering what's on top of this hill. After all, this is where you go if you lose in versus mode. Well, there is a glitch to get up there if you wall club this tree. But there's no collision. The version that they actually use where you drive up here is a completely different version of the track. And you can find out more in my video about the secret tracks of Mario Kart Wii. In Wario's Gold Mine, although it's very hard, it's possible to shoom off of this and land on the house. It's out of bounds, but we can drive out of bounds. Now, most of these don't have collision. This one in particular does for some reason. And even though I'm about to fall through it, this one does too. Now, all of these beams have collision, and they even extend a little bit outside the wall. It's hard to get a good view, but yeah. If we fall down here, there's this whole area down here under the track. And these are purely decorative minecarts, they don't hurt you. We can even go a little bit beyond the wall, and we can see the tracks continue through the wall, and we can even see the minecart spawning. This is such an awesome view of the track to have in-game. Now, the final track is Coconut Mall, because we all know that this one is very detailed. I'm sure you've all seen the Ultra Shortcut, where they go through the parking lot. This whole parking lot is out of bounds, and you can drive here. Most of the arches don't have collision, but this one in particular does, and you can drive up it. And we can drive down to the other side to another parking lot, and this one also has collision, and you can drive in it. There's also a third parking lot to the left of the start line, and that has collision, and you can drive in it. There's even like another entrance almost to the mall that we can't normally access, and that has collision. Well, not this part, but the road up to it does. You can actually see this road continues on for ages, but sadly we can't drive on that. Now, inside the mall itself, none of these shops have any collision inside them, and we also can't take the top level over here. Oh, we can for a little bit, but not for long. But we can hang out on this bottom level. I was gonna show you, like, at a certain point that I planned, but I just fell down here. There's a track underneath the floor. You can kind of see it through the floor a little bit. Even this grass has a collision. You can fall onto the grass on top, and that has collision. On the left-hand side, if I go through this wall, there's just a grass field, and this has collision, and I can drive here. Again, not out of bounds. In the spiral area, you can hop through the wall, and you can drive around down here where the tree is. You can even kind of see the picnic spot. And in this part, you actually can go in the shops and hang out, which is cool. In fact, here you can just kind of leave if you want to, but I don't want to. I just want to drive on thin air, which I can also do. We can come behind the counter, and we can go to where they're serving food, also has collision. There's also a little side area over here. Now, while we can't access it in this game, you can see there's actually a little beach across the road. And in Mario Kart Tour, there's actually a variant of the track where you drive on the beach. Thanks for watching this video. I also created a mod called Mario Kart Midnight, so if you're looking to get into custom tracks and Mario Kart modding, that's a good place to start. Goodbye.